they sort of go hand in hand. And when you're talking to insiders, these two positions are the two that I think most of them or that insiders are the most excited about. And it's going to be hard to be really successful without any position, but particularly one of these two, which is the offensive line at Georgia. There's a lot of optimism about where the Dogs are going on the offensive line, even though you've had a kind of a jumpy preseason with Jared Wilson at center not being there most of the time. It's been Tate Ratledge. But the other spot that is sexier but goes hand in hand with the running backs is running back. I mean, that's a spot that people really are excited about. You can hear it when Kirby's talking about it, and I'll reference that in a little bit here. But that group is deep, and it has the ability with Frazier, Dwight Phillips, both the Robinsons, and then ETN, and I'm sure I'm leaving people off, Cash Jones, etc. It's just such a deep group that it's hard to know which people are more excited about. I think the people that are, I guess, older, I'm not sure the best way to put it, but folks who have, I would say folks who are sort of even more in the weeds than anything, they really are, they really like where the offensive line is at and where it's going. The other thing is, too, most of the people that I've talked with are very excited about the incoming class of offensive linemen. You're already hearing some chirping about that, but mainly it's about the group that's already there. Here's what Kirby had to say about not just Nate Frazier, but all the young guys. He said there's a bunch of guys in that room that are doing a great job. Chauncey Bowens is doing a great job. The young guys, or the young kids, Dwight Phillips Jr., he also mentioned Nate Frazier. Those guys are all doing a great job, and we need them to help us this year. Let me translate that for you. That's not just at running back. That's at all of the other positions. Do you remember in 2014 when there was this guy named Sony Michel who played at Georgia, and he was sprinting down the field on special teams? You may or may not remember that. He went on to be a first-round draft pick, went on to win a Super Bowl. And I'll tell you, in his career opener, is actually the better way to put it, against Clemson in 2014, you see Sony Michel flying down the field on special teams. Now, I want to put a picture up here in a second that shows what I'm talking about. It was not just that Sony was playing running back, although he did that well. To have a look real quick, this is Sony Michel playing special teams. That's Darius Swan right there, okay? Excuse me, Damian Swan, my guy from Grady. Swan and Sony, obviously one of the faster guys out there, but you also had Swan. Here he is with Reggie Davis playing on punt, going the opposite direction against Clemson. Those guys, needless to say, Sony made this tackle with Swan, okay? But those guys are going to have to do things other than just, as you see here with Sony, run the football in that game. There's been some discussion, too. People have been asking me over on the message board, over on Dawg Post, what color jerseys will Georgia wear? I cannot report. Here's a good shot of Sony, too, real quick, in that game specifically. Man, Georgia just ran on Clemson that night. This game that they're playing against Clemson is almost to the day 10 years from what happened in Athens that night in 2014. People are asking me what color jersey Georgia will wear. So let me run through that just real quick, sort of inside baseball. By the way, make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. The link is right down below. You're not going to miss out on any of these things. Tonight, Ryan's got a story that's going to be on tomorrow's newsletter. It might not be the lead. I don't know what will be the lead. Now, about what Stephen A. Smith had to say about Georgia and Alabama. And I had something today about the challenges that Kirby's seeing in practice. You're going to get all those things on the newsletter every single day. You need to make sure that you're signing up for the newsletter. It's free. It does not cost any money. It's the best newsletter out there. Why do I say that? Well, partly because it's mine, but partly because it's true. I mean, both things can be true at the same time. In terms of this sort of inside baseball, let me take you through this real quick. Y'all, I've been trying to give y'all more and more of an insider look at and a peek at things. Not just with what people will say, but I know a lot about the behind the scenes of certain things. And one thing that the Chick-fil-A Bowl has not been, or well, what was once the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Gary Stokan, who played at NC State, he really likes to see a lot of color on the field when teams are playing. That's why you saw in the Peach Bowl with Georgia and Cincinnati, Georgia was in black, Cincinnati in red. That's where you saw with the kickoff game in 16, Georgia was in red, Carolina was in blue. They are not going to be able to both, Clemson and Georgia are not going to be able to both have on red. And orange is red for the purposes of this discussion. Orange is red. So that is a non-starter. They will, the likelihood is very simple. It's that Clemson will be in white or all white because Dabo does not wear orange unless there's a championship involved, some sort of championship. He's made that clear through the years. So they've not had as many opportunities lately to wear the orange pants. Danny Ford used to wear them for, quote, big games. So Clemson wore white orange pants against Georgia more than a few times in the Danny Ford era. And then Terry Bowden came in and really goofed with the uniform. Dabo's done a good job of not making it insane. And it had gotten stupid. The purple on orange looks horrible, but that's another discussion for another time. It's not out of the realm of possibility, mentioning purple, that Clemson could roll out in purple. Now, I don't think that will happen, but we'll see. I expect Georgia in red. I think if it were in black, we would know that by now. Georgia will not be in white. And I can't say that definitively, but I can say for a lot of reasons. The last time these two played, Georgia was in white. And, Clemson was in orange and white. Clemson's best jerseys are all white with the orange top, period. That's all there is to it. All the other stuff, just, But I think Gary would, and the person that runs this game, in a perfect world, would like both teams to have, dark colors. And you're not allowed to do that. You have to get that's not a common thing. Georgia Tech wears white all the time. LSU wears white. But, we saw some times recently where Jeff Collins got his feelings hurt about, Georgia being in red at Martin Field. So he made Georgia wear. Georgia doesn't care what color they're wearing, when they're on the road. But Georgia Tech and Georgia should be in red. Tech should be in white, and that's just what it should be. And in this case, I think you're going to see Georgia in red and probably Clemson in white. But we'll just see. We'll see how that goes. But people have been asking me that, and that's the long answer. Okay, when you sign up for the newsletter, and maybe if you sign up to the site, you can get the site right now until the Alabama game for $1. It's a great, you should click on the link down below to see what I'm talking about. But it's a great opportunity for me to fill you in on these things when it doesn't just pop into my brain. But I think folks really forget what color, Georgia could come out there in pink and people would be going crazy for it. The optimism about the running game is significant, and the optimism about where Georgia's at running back is pretty. You can feel that. I felt that a long time ago, and you can feel that now in a very big way. I mean, they are very deep at running back, and the question becomes too. Can you have a successful run game without a dominant offensive line? The way that Mike Bobo, Mark Richt style was successful often, but it was not physically trying to plow you over. Like, you're not asking John Theus or Brendan Cublano to man up the next person in front of them all game long. That's more Kirby's style. The previous style at Georgia was about athletic offensive linemen. David Andrews, Cublano, Pike, guys who were going to get out, sprint. Now, they do that still at Georgia. Don't get me wrong. I'm not calling Tate Ratledge or Truss or certainly, any of the guys that went before them and first round guys not athletic, but it really was about getting on the edges. It felt like a lot. Georgia doesn't do that as often anymore, but with the line they've got, man, they can just in most cases, they can maul you. Now, they're not going to maul you every single time. They're going to have a hard time mauling Clemson. I am going to be very curious to see, you're talking about a Clemson defense that is, I've said it over and over again. This is a legitimate defense for sure. These guys, they are legit, but they have regressed. There's no question about it. This is not the group from 2017. With that said, a season ago, they were a top 25 defense against the run. They allowed 100, just talking about Clemson, this is 114 yards a game. That's a few, that's 1 yard exactly more than Georgia allowed. In that time, Georgia, I'm just looking very quickly of top 25 teams that Georgia ran against. Kentucky, who they did run on. Tennessee, who they did run on. Georgia did not play anybody else. I'm just looking very quickly who's in the top 25. They didn't play anybody else that was in the top 25, Georgia. Clemson played Louisville. No, I don't know if they played Louisville. So, that's it's always very curious to see what people have to say about this stuff. But Clemson folks feel like they are in a really good position on their front. They think that they have good players. They think they're better than they've been on the front for the first time in a while. There's some susceptibility at DB. I think that's a part that there's concern about. I was going to say, you don't want to deal with Carson Beck and Georgia chunking the ball all over the place, but Georgia's so balanced, man. That's the real problem. They are so balanced that it's going to be not a lot of fun, I guess is one way to put it. It's going to be challenging for whoever Georgia's going up against to stop them in the run game. Now, I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you're Iowa and you're not playing anybody in the Big Ten. You're going to have a hard time. And it's the combination of these two things that insiders are talking about quite a bit. And it's not just insiders, for the record. I mean, Kirby's talking about how good they are. I mean, direct quotes are there, the whole time. He said, here's what he says about the running back room. He said, they work really hard. He said, I feel like ETN is the leader of the room and understands things and does a really good job of setting the tempo and setting the standard. Branson Robinson's been great. Roderick Robinson's been dealing with a bit of a toe injury, which you do want to deal with. I mean, I would not, that's not something you want to linger, just as an aside. And then he said, then the three freshmen. So we're looking forward to getting all those guys ready to go. And he said that room's has been really good in camp. And if you were to look at what he said about the defensive backs, got a long way to go. Like, he's not saying that about the offensive line. He's not saying that about the running backs. So I trust what people that I talk to tell me. And part of what you have to do when you're me or reporters, generally speaking, is you can't, if you're just taking one person's word for it, that's a very dangerous situation to be in, right? I mean, that person could be completely correct. One reason why Dawg Post is a lot slow, or is a little bit slower for sure, than other outlets in terms of turning things around is I just don't trust one person or two. And I don't know if that's what other people are doing. They may well be getting 7 people in the first 15 minutes after practice. Part of what happens is I have a life too, and I go out and do stuff or whatever. And I like to write things late on Saturday night after people, either when they're driving back from the scrimmage or after people have left and kind of they're getting back to their families in Athens. So I will say, though, the consistent theme has been, either someone ranting and raving about how good ETN is, how surprised they are about Frazier. People have not seen him except for a couple of times. Just people inside the program are confident in this running back room, and they are young. 3 of the guys I'm talking about are young. Now, Cash Jones is not young. ETN's never played at Georgia. Both the Robinsons are, one's coming off an injury, one's fighting one off. So this is not perfect, but the offensive line has been dealing with stuff too. But man, this is a good situation for Georgia right now. Let's just see how it progresses. Thanks for watching.